Welcome to Season 3 of the Soualichi Stories, presented by the 4C Foundation and funded by Fonds voor Cultuur, Partitipatie. The Soualichi Story series includes tales of our island's beloved legends, history, and folklore as told by exceptional storytellers. 4C Foundation is honored to share these stories as it brings people together and bridges the gap between generations. These stories remind us of our culture, our heritage, our one island. Through these stories, we hope you feel more connected as we thrive to keep storytelling alive. Please enjoy this next Soualichi story and all other stories within this series, and let us know if there are any other particular stories you would like to hear in the future. Enjoy!
The enslavers never thought highly of us. We were considered nothing but mere mortals to be controlled, abused, and told what to do. But knowledge gave us freedom. Yes, knowledge opened up our understanding of the world and gave us dignity. Knowledge made us thinkers and men who dare to express themselves. Our identity was not formed by chains, but by the power given to us by the Almighty.
Those were the last words of Joseph Augustus Rogers, one of the first of we Simatin people to know freedom. He passed away at 99 years old in 1873, yet still, he spoke with a commanding bass voice. He was born in 1774 at Bethlehem Plantation. From the age of 5, Joseph showed a knack for curiosity, which his mother tried to curb. He did not know his father because he was amputated for an attempted rebellion and sent to Martinique to do woodwork. Up until his early adulthood, Jojo, as he was commonly referred to, lived for adventure. He dared cross boundary lines when roaming through town and listened in on conversations of the controllers. That's how he referenced enslavers and their overseers. Despite his chancy escapades, Jojo had the trust of the controllers. They admired his handsomeness and strength. But his charm brought on extra eyes from the wrong people, as some controllers feared his influence and stature. With his mother being aware, she taught him to be more discreet, to downplay his wisdom. She feared he might end up like his father, so Jojo struggled with being his own person and getting free from his mother's watchful eyes. Most of his youth was spent on the pier, where sailors would take in the heap of salt stored near the courthouse to destinations in Europe and North America. Salt is what preserved meat and fish for the booming industries in those regions. It was at the pier Jojo learned Dutch, German, and Spanish from the multiple sailors who came by. His inclination for mischievousness was fueled by transporting salt to those boats, but he used his wit to study the people he encountered and lay low as much as possible. Henk and Piet were the two sailors who intrigued him with their stories. They were formerly pirates with the Dutch West India Company. They took a liking to Jojo and periodically gave him money as he did them favors. It would either be passing on messages to their connections in the north, sharing information of political developments, and providing them with the sweetest local fruits he gathered. As he saved each contribution they made, he delivered beyond their expectation. As he got older, Jojo got more serious and a bit reserved. He wanted to rid himself of a life with controllers. He started with a slight name change. He demanded those who knew him call him Mr. Rogers. Some laughed, but he remained steadfast. Picking salt was hard work. His workload also became burdensome. Mr. Rogers was viewed as a buck, a strong, healthy male only good for hard labor and impregnating women. Mr. Rogers was a large man who towered over anyone who stood next to him. His arms were like iron brass, yet his embrace was warm and welcoming. During the early 1800s, military presence increased in the region. The Haitian Revolution and other uprisings sparked a trend on different islands. Mr. Rogers suspected it would lead to harsher times, and he was determined to live them on his own terms. He considered being smuggled to Canada on board one of the boats that came into Grand Case, but the risk was too great. Mr. Rogers sensed it would lead to an entrapment and him being sent to work in harsher conditions on another plantation. Following the revolution, the French became harsher to instill fear in the hearts of the enslaved. He considered fleeing to Anguilla and making his way to a maroon town in Dominica, but decided to approach the chief controller at the plantation. There, Mr. Rogers made his approach to Meneer Hans van Vermont, who owned the majority of the lots in the pond. He approached Hans while he was walking with his wife Elsa, who had a liking to Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers sensed she'd persuade her husband to grant him freedom. When Mr. Rogers showed Hans the collection of silver and gold he stored over the years, he agreed to grant him his freedom. But he did not include the parcel of land Mr. Rogers requested along with it, despite giving him a rare coin Pete and Hank gave him before their last trip to St. Martin. Mr. Rogers ended up working 25 more years for scraps before gaining the plot of land in over the pond. It was a sloped 6 acres of rocky and dry terrain. Nevertheless, he developed it for himself and his family. During that time, he met his wife Irene, who was bought by Hans from a plantation owner called Duplantier. She always marveled at his faith. It kept him going as he increased in knowledge and stature. Mr. Rogers eventually imported books and maps from his old sailor friends and their colleagues. He traded in fruits which were considered exotic and indigo. Due to his success, he acclaimed more land, particularly as Van Vermont's presence and influence on the island dwindled. When the French abolished slavery 15 years before the Dutch, he realized it was the perfect opportunity to encourage others to claim their freedom. He bought the freedom of several children and led them into the trades and agriculture. Of the folks who were still bound by their controllers, Mr. Rogers' life was a beacon. Though they lived in chains, his conversations, prayers, and life were a constant campaign of liberty. Several other families joined Mr. Rogers and bought land next to his. Everyone around became like his disciples, reminding all they met of his life's motto:
Every man ought to be born free.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. Over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my own grave and go home to my Lord and be free. No more weeping, don't you know? No more weeping. No more weeping over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my own grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
We hope you enjoyed this inspiring Soualichi story, presented by the Forsey Foundation and funded by Fonds voor Cultuur Partitipatie. We hope this story helped you to feel more connected to the island and to each other. More information on the story and schedule can be found on the Forsey website and social media pages. We look forward to connecting with you again in our next Soualichi story.